Hey everyone, I am Joanna Rochester, Soul Alchemist, and we are here for Real Talk Soul Alchemy at Speak Up and Empower. Speak Up and Empower is an online community of heart-centered people focused on creating the world that they envision for themselves, a world that is healthier, free from pain, free from a place where there's joy and happiness, and letting go of anxiety, depression, etc., etc. So this world is truly a beautiful world, and at Speak Up and Empower, we hope to share stories, experiences, wisdom on how to bring joy and happiness into your life. So soul alchemy, soul alchemist, alchemy is the art of transformation. In the olden days, alchemy would looked at transforming silver into gold, or silver into, or one material into another material. As a soul alchemist, I help you transform your life into creating the vision of it that you hope for yourself. So I help people become aware of their purpose and not purposes, purposes. We always, we often think there's, this one major purpose in our life, but so much of life is about experiencing adventures, and those adventures can be painful. Those adventures can be joyful. Those adventures can teach you. Well, all adventures teach you something about yourself that you actually asked for. We all come into this world with a contract to explore, to learn more, to do certain things. And we often think that that purpose is, our only purpose, but it's not. We have many purposes in this life, and there may be a bigger purpose, but often often our purpose is just to be here, to exist, to explore, to experience different things. Sometimes our purpose is to be a parent. Sometimes our purpose is to teach. Sometimes our purpose is to guide others, to be a way shower, to be a leader, to be a star shower, to be a grid worker, to be a star seed. Whatever your purpose is, it's never going to be just one purpose. And I think that's a bit of the beauty of life in general, and the beauty of our experiences here is that, our biggest purpose in life is to understand ourselves, to remember who we are, to come back into us. So often we get caught up in our story of who we are, our story that has been created based upon things that we've heard about ourselves, things that people have told us about ourselves, labels that have been put on yourself, so many things. And it's created this story, the story of who you are, but that story is not your truth. That story is not reality. It is an accumulation of pieces of information, and we allow it, because we don't know any better, to guide us. Just for example, if you were told that you were shy as a kid, then you would have taken on that title as being shy, and your parents might have just always said, my daughter is shy, and we then come to believe that about ourselves. But it may not be that you're shy at all. It may be that you're a new soul on this planet, and you're trying to understand what's going on so you don't feel connected to other people. It may be that you are a really old soul and don't feel that need to share, to reach out and explore more of have a great curiosity about life. So who knows, there's so many things, maybe on the autism spectrum, or maybe hard of hearing. Like, there's so many factors that go into someone that's considered shy, but we take on that shy title and we allow it to create our story, and then that limits us. And I think that's one of the biggest things, is that we are limited by our story. What is possible for us is unlimited, but we get limited by what we think, by how we see ourselves, by the titles that we put on ourselves, the blocks that are out there that we've created as we've gone through life up until this point in time. Hindsight's an absolutely wonderful thing. It allows us to look back and reflect and to decide, to decide what happened in the past, if that's something that we want to experience again. But unfortunately, so often hindsight brings us to a place of judging ourselves. of looking back and go, oh, I was bad or wrong, or that was a terrible thing to do, or I was mean or whatever. But there's so many factors here that hindsight, I love it when people do look back, because it means that you're ready to grow and ready to change and do something different. And so I would love it if you do look back, is to not judge yourself, because judging assumes that you did something wrong. And we don't do things wrong, and unless we do things from a very dark place in our soul, we are doing things because, that's all that we know how to do at the time. That's the only changes that we can make. And so we don't know how to do anything different. But when we are able to look back and think, oh, I did it that way, and now I understand I did it that way for this and this and this reason, but going forward, I would like to change my response. I would like to change the way I reacted to that situation. And then we can guide ourselves in a different direction. Stress is about how we react to a situation. When we can learn to respond, then we can truly change our life. And we can learn to respond, and we can recognize when we're reacting, when we are in that observer role, when we're noticing what's going on within us. We're being present, we're grounded, we're conscious of what we are actually doing and observing it, and almost like stepping back in that third party and watching as an interested bystander about what's going on. And then we can learn to deal with stress and respond rather than reacting. So an example of that would be, the other day, pattern of mine from the old, my old self, was to ignore when I was irritated by things. Life was busy, didn't deserve, so many of these factors. And so things would build up, and then I would explode. I would overreact. And people would look at me like, wow, what's going on here? And it was not because of, this, what was immediately happening in front of me was causing me to overreact, but it was because of a buildup of, over time, of this energy inside of me. And when I overreacted in stress, not being aware, just reacting, then I put my energy out on other people. And then they felt it, and they went, wah, because more likely, well, in this situation in particular, they were not in their own body either. They were being triggered to a certain degree by my release of energy. So energy works in an amazing way, but it's being that observer in your life allows you to observe and to watch and to pay attention and to know what's going on. And when we can do that and not get triggered, because we're in that moment, and I'm not building up energy and irritated and frustrated, and I can pay attention and know that I haven't allowed that to happen because I know I deserve, then I will not release that energy. But even if I did release that energy, I can step back and see, look at how my energy affected the other person, and look at how I have caused them to change. And be that observer, I can decide in the future, looking back in hindsight, to do things differently, to change my pattern, my process, my habits, so that that energy doesn't build up. That when I notice things that become irritating or are bugging me, I can recognize why I'm being bugged and do something about it at the very start. A lot of times, and for a lot of people, is they don't feel that they have that ability to speak their voice, that they don't have that ability to say, hey, this is bugging me. So often in society, we're told to, suck it up, or, just to not do something to bring about a confrontation, right? To just let it go. Well, that just pushes energy back down into us, into our throat or our stomachs, and creates issues there. So if it is really important to allow your voice to be heard. And the biggest thing that I would suggest to you is that when you can allow your voice to be heard, coming from a place of confidence, not coming from a place of anger. If you're lashing out and trying to get your voice heard because people aren't listening, but you're doing that from a place of insecurity, of no one listens to me, this is making me angry. If you're doing that, then you will not be heard. People will just see you as lashing out. But if you can stand in your power and say, this does not work for me for this reason, then people will listen to you, and your energy will not be affecting them, so that they can respond in turn also, as long as they're doing the work also. If they're still being triggered by things or triggered by emotions, then it's going to be challenging for them also. But the biggest thing for you, you don't have to worry about them, but the biggest thing for you is to stand in your power, present what you're feeling, knowing that you deserve to be heard, and knowing that you're worthy, and knowing that you have a voice. Then you will be heard, and you can step away from it. If you decide, if they react and overreact, then you can step away from the situation without being triggered. And then you're in your power. And then you're in your own ability to control the situation. And you can, going forward, you may say something different, or you may look at how it was presented. Like, there's a variety of ways, but if you stand in your power and present your voice, you will be heard, and you will, whoever you're talking to, you will come to a place where you don't have to repeat that same conversation down the road, because they respect you, they honor you, trust you, and they know they're safe, that you're not going to react, and they don't have to take on your energy and then deal with this situation. So I'm not quite sure if you understood that situation, but I always know that the messages that I'm giving, someone needs to hear them. So it went on a bit longer than I thought, but someone needed to hear that. So if you have any questions more about that, I'd love to talk to you more about it, because it's such a big part of who we are, to really understand our energy and how it affects other people, and how how other people's energy affects us. Because we have all these chakras, and they're energy centers in our body, and each one of them is very powerful in its own right, and is a true indicator of different emotions, different organ systems, different symptoms that you might be experiencing. So if you can be that observer in your life, when you're feeling other people's energy, then you can feel where it is in your body. And that can really help you also to understand more about yourself, more about that journey of self-discovery and self-awareness. So in a moment when you're being triggered, if you can, or even afterwards, right, come back and experience that moment again and feel what's going on in your body. Just for example, if you start to explore your chakras, so of course your throat, that's having your voice heard. And a lot of people have throat issues, or if they get sick, that's the first thing that happens, is that they get issues, they sore throat, or laryngitis, or something along that lines. I had a thyroid issue for many years, and of course that is was my weak point. Now that I've done the work, I can move on past that, and I don't tend to get the throat issues. Or if I do get the throat issues, here's another thing. If I do get the throat issues, it means to me that I'm not speaking my voice, and I'm not feeling heard. So where do I go in my life to explore what's happening there? Mental, emotional thoughts and triggers manifest as physical issues. So my voice wasn't being heard for a large part of my life. And I'm not talking all the time. I'm just talking in my closest relationship. When my voice was not being heard, I had throat issues. And of course, your thyroid's in your throat. So it's not a surprise that I ended up with a thyroid issue. So, but this can happen in other areas of your body. So if you're not feeling loved in your relationship, you might have heart issues or lung issues. If you're not feeling able to move forward in your life, you might have knee issues. And at the end of my marriage, I knew that I needed to get out of it, but lack of self-confidence, commitment to, kids, all these things prevented me from taking that move and doing something about it. And I had, I tore my ACL and ripped my meniscus. And You know, the universe gives us examples, shows us what needs to be done, and it's up to us as being that observer to pay attention and understand what the signals mean so that we can do something about it. So, other examples are, if you've got gut issues, digestive issues, things along that lines. A lot of times digestive issues are a need to control. If you feel that there's chaos in your life and you feel you need to control, bit of OCD, anything along that lines, you probably have constipation. And because that's your way of controlling things. So what do you do about that? Well, you explore where that need to control comes from. Could be inner child work that needs to be done, looking back at what took place in your childhood, where can you make adjustments, where can you make changes? And if you can let go of that need to control, because we try and control when there is chaos in our lives that we can't control. It's where people that have eating disorders, they need to control something. And often that's the only thing that they can control is how much they eat or purge, things along that lines. So there is always a mental, emotional component to what is going on in your life. It may not seem like it, but it's certainly there. I certainly have had people say, well, what about someone who gains weight? How is that a mental, emotional component? Well, a lot of times that extra weight on your body is there as a blanket, as a protection, as a shield from people, from being hurt again, from having something traumatic happen again. I have had a fair number of people of my clients that have been sexually abused, and they carry the extra weight because a lot of times the sexual abuse took place when they were in a much different physical body. And so they keep that weight on to shield themselves, or, they may subconsciously see themselves as they don't want to be that attractive again, because when they were smaller, this happened. So they don't want to go back there. So they keep that extra weight on. Or it may be, it may not be, although it often is a sexual trauma, but, putting that extra weight on keeps people from getting in. They've been hurt. And it is most often in this lifetime, or it's a continuation of a cycle from previous lifetimes, where in previous lifetimes, they have been hurt many times. And often it's, it may be emotionally, but often it's related to a karmic cycle that they're moving through. My lifetime this time around was an ending of a very long running karmic cycle with a few people in my life. And so it had to come to an end. My soul went, I'm done with this. I'm not doing it anymore. So I'm ending it in this cycle. And that's what's taken place now, is that I've ended that cycle and I can step into the life that I truly want. Now, it's taken me a while. It's not like one cycle ended and I stepped in. I had to come to know myself. I had to become more aware of who I am and get in touch with myself, become that observer in my life. And it is work. There's no question about it. Soul work is work. It's not easy. There are certainly days where I think, I don't want to do this anymore. There's days where I think, God, I'm just tired, pull the blankets back over my head and don't make me work with people. Just let me be by myself and I'm okay. But then of course you feel alone and lonely. And I will say to you also that doing work and becoming more self-aware often is lonely work, because a lot of times when you start to tap into you and start to allow your true self to be seen and heard, you are no longer content with the relationships that you had before. It's no longer works for you to go and have surface discussions or shallow discussions about just the day-to-day, or gossip or anything that's low vibration like that. It no longer resonates with you and your energetic field, your aura, your internal, your thought process is just becomes, you're not willing to lower yourself down to that type of vibration anymore. And so you tend to move away from people that aren't at your level on a vibrational level, the higher vibration level. And it is challenging, but it's also very beautiful, because when you're at that higher vibration, there's a lot more joy. You don't get caught up in drama. You can be that observer in your life and come to recognize, peace, happiness, whatever you're searching for. And that's when you step into more of you and let go of more of your story, that you can come to that place of peace and joy and happiness, and figure out more about you. But it is a process, and it's not like you go back to your inner child and go, that's what that is, and it's done. It's there's lots of times where I've dealt with a situation, and 6 months later it comes back up, and again it's like, God, I thought I dealt with that already. Well, there's that layers of the onion, and you peel it back and more is uncovered. And you can eventually get to the place where you go, it happened, but there's no longer an energy attached to it. But that can be work to have that happen. So don't be hard on yourself if you had an epiphany one day and went, oh, that's what that's about, and now I'm done. Well, it just doesn't work that way, unfortunately. We're such complex beings, and there's many different levels of us, mental, physical, emotional, and energy gets stuck in our bodies. That's why we cry, to release energy. And, we have to go through all these different levels to move on and move forward and to learn who we are. So a couple tips before we go about how to step into understanding and becoming aware of your journey. The biggest thing is that being that observer in your life. Start to, today, just start thinking, like, coming back in, doing breath work, 5 deep belly breaths, 4 or 5 times a day will help you to come back into your body and help you be more aware of what's going on. Because so often there's a disconnect between our bodies and our brains, and we don't feel what we're being shown. And so if we can start to reconnect and understand what we're being shown, we can start to build that connection, build that true understanding of ourselves, and come to see when we're being triggered, so that we can understand more and let go. So for now, just start to notice you. Notice yourself physically. Notice yourself, your thoughts. Don't try and change anything at first. Because, of course, if you tell someone, don't think about the horse, what are you going to think about the horse? So just notice. Notice what's taking place within you, so that down the road you can start to make adjustments to it. You can journal. Journal is a great way to keep track and to notice what's going on. And, it doesn't have to be a long journal, written, 2 or 3 pages every night. But if you sit down and do 3 lines every night about a physical thought or physical symptom that I noticed today, or thought that I noticed today, or an emotion that I noticed today, then that's a great way to start to connect the dots. Start to have a success journal, so you start to see the trends, right, about what is taking place. And then looking back, a couple months from now, you can go, wow, that's where I was in only, a month ago or 2 months ago or whatever. It is an amazing journey that you will experience when you start to remember and start to notice who you truly are. Because we are all designed to heal ourselves. We've just forgotten how. So you've got everything that you need inside of you to be that best version of you, the version of you that is happy and filled with joy and at peace and in balance and has a healthy body and everything along those lines that you could possibly want. And that will spill over into the people around you and help you achieve that purpose that you came here for. So anything is possible for you. It's just tapping in to who you are and remembering. So journal, notice. Of course, I'm a coach, and I help people to be guided towards that inner child work and to understanding more about themselves. I channel, and I am an intuitive coach. So there's lots of pieces that I bring to the puzzle. And, my website is soulalchemisthealing.com or joannarodster.com. I've also written a book called The Magnificence of Magenta, Rediscovering the Color of Your Soul, that's available on my website. But there's also all kinds of other, Sonia Choquette, Choquette, is an amazing psychic and medium. And one of her books that I started reading was How to Connect with Your Guides. And one of the biggest things in that book is with connecting with your guides is to be that observer, to get back in touch with who you are. And to one of the other suggestions, if you pray, I got a Catholic background, but I would say I was a recovering Catholic now. And so I wouldn't call it praying for me, but it certainly is connecting with God and tapping into my intuition. Wayne Dyer used to say, if prayer is you talking to God, then intuition is God talking to you. And so I tap into my intuition to connect on that other level. So this has been Joanna Rogister, Soul Alchemist, and this is Real Talk Soul Alchemy every Thursday at 12:30. Next week, I do have a guest, and Hemi is here to talk about, she is also an alchemist of a slightly different sort. So she's going to be here to talk more about alchemy with me. But this is part of Speak Up and Empower, an online community of heart-centered people that are focused on bringing more into their lives. We have conversations that change the way that you see life. So join me next Thursday at 12:30 and have an amazing day.